It was with pride that the Nigerian Air Force celebrated the relaunch of its newly refurbished transport aircraft, the C-130H, into its fleet and deployed same to supply weapons, others to battlefields in the northeast and northwest. Although the refurbishment may have come at a great cost, it's being touted as having the potential of saving the force a huge cost on foreign exchange. We'll bring you the grand launch of the C-130H NAF 918 aircraft, plus we'll weigh in on the issue of outstanding trapped funds of international airlines operating in the country. A very warm welcome to you. It's another edition of Aviation This Week. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo, standing in for your regular anchor, Bukola Joe Ketumbi.
In a matter of weeks, the nation will hold the much talked about 2023 general elections, and this is expected to be a very busy period for the domestic airlines as they'll be taking passengers to their various destinations days before the ban on movement by the electoral umpire. The Air Force cargo aircraft are expected to move sensitive election materials across the country, as well as work with other security agencies to secure materials and persons. Already, the Nigerian Air Force has taken delivery of a refurbished C-130H aircraft with registration number NAF 918. This aircraft is the third PDM of C-130H aircraft successfully refurbished in the country. The aircraft has rejoined the Air Force fleet after an in-country periodic depot maintenance at the C-31 Aircraft Maintenance Depot in Ikeja, Lagos. The Lockheed C-30 Hercules is a 4-engine turboprop military transport aircraft used by other national military formations as gunship for airborne assault, search and rescue missions, scientific research support, aerial refueling, maritime patrol, and aerial firefighting.
Over the years, this type of maintenance is usually carried out abroad in facilities of different maintenance repair organizations.
Welcoming all present, the Air Officer Commanding Logistics Command Lagos explains the vital role the aircraft will play as an addition to the assets of the national military.
The PDM has enhanced the maintenance capacity of personnel serving at the depot. This is in line with two key drivers of the Chief of the Air Staff's vision for the Nigerian Air Force. These are, firstly, I quote, purposeful training and human capacity development, unquote. And the second, I equally quote, sustenance of platforms and equipment serviceability through innovative maintenance methods and logistics support system, unquote. I must say that the accomplishment of this feat could not have been achieved without the visionary leadership of the Chief of the Air Staff and the unwavering support of the present political leadership.
Speaking on the successful completion of the maintenance, the representative of the Chief of Air Staff noted that the refurbished heavy aircraft platform will improve the operational efficiency of the Nigerian Air Force in fighting all forms of crimes, especially as elections draw close.
Government will continue to acquire additional aircraft to boost the Nigerian Air Force capabilities for airlift, intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance, ground attack, advanced jet training, and combat multi-role helicopters. As you might have observed, we have continued to fund training of personnel both locally and internationally. I therefore call on the National Assembly to make provision for additional funds so that we can actually maintain and upgrade the additional C-130 aircraft lying in our airport today. I urge you all to reciprocate these giant strides by remaining loyal, committed, and ensuring safe operations and maintenance of your platforms, including the C-130 Hercules aircraft we are rolling out today.
In his remarks, the Chief of Air Staff stated that the rollout ceremony of the C-130H aircraft restates its vision to enhance the Nigerian Air Force air power capabilities needed to join force deployment in pursuit of national security policy.
In-country periodic maintenance improve Nigerian Air Force aircraft serviceability, as well as significantly reduce its maintenance cost of carrying out such maintenance overseas, thereby conserving foreign exchange for the country. It also progressively enhances our aircraft hangar facilities, as well as exposes more of our aircraft maintenance technicians and engineers to requisite expertise and high-quality maintenance practices at affordable cost. I'm also proud to let you know that the aircraft was test flown by Nigerian Air Force pilots to confirm that all engines, instruments, and avionics parameters are within standard safety limits.
The acceptance and rollout ceremony was attended by the members of the defense committees of the National Assembly, senior officers, airmen and women of the Nigerian Air Force. With this addition to the flight assets of the nation, security watch before, during and after the elections remain an imperative factor for Nigerians, one the government and other sister agencies in Nigeria should strive to keep up with to aid reduce the state of insecurity and management of national assets moving forward.
Mrs. Susan Akworaye also spoke on the challenges of travel agents.
We recommend that the government encourages and go into strategic partnership with indigenous airlines to explore more international routes as to create the competitive environment that discourages undue advantage and encourages true market forces to regulate the cost of airfares for Nigerians. We as a body will gladly work with the committee set up to fine-tune how this will work. Invariably, we are telling the government, if they don't know how to do it, we are here. They can consult us and we'll let them know how it works. Because more airlines, indigenous airlines, will create competition, and foreign airlines will not always take advantage of us or take us for a ride. Okay, we as a body will gladly work with the committee set up to fine-tune how this will operate as we give our on-field experience to enable our nation gain the best out of it. This we will commit to if the foreign airlines insist on getting us out of business. We will gladly engage with government and other stakeholders as to know how to birth this while ensuring foreign airlines get their funds too. So, I said in the last press conference when somebody was asking me which side am I on on my side. I stand on the side of my members, not on anybody's side, because both sides are not doing well. So at this point, and both sides have left us hanging. So it's an issue of two elephants are fighting and the ants are suffering. So on this point, I'm sorry, I stand on my own side and the side of members. So while we're doing that, we are very fair as Manta. We're encouraging the government to create competition, and at the same time, that is why that last bit is very important. We will also ensure, even as we're telling government to encourage indigenous airlines to fly international, doesn't mean we will encourage the government not to allow the airlines to repatriate their funds. It's part of the BASA agreement, and that cannot be neglected. So we're working with the government on that. We will also ensure foreign airlines get their funds too. We at NATA are pained, anxious, and worried. We cannot overemphasize the consequences of job losses. The security risks to Nigerians traveling across borders to connect cheaper flights, and the shame of a parallel dollar monetary policy in the travel sector against established national Naira monetary policy. We are also worried that none of our political parties have deemed it necessary to look at aviation economics, particularly on its homogeneous social economy and security opportunities, and how it should be made more responsive and efficient to make Nigeria proud on the international aviation scene. Our part, we advise the new government, whoever the new government will be, to follow up keenly on bilateral air service agreement and other extant aviation laws, which will open our economy to serious local and foreign investors. We also remain available to whoever the new government will be come February and March to engage us in the way forward for aviation, travel, tourism in Nigeria.
With the 2023 general elections weeks away, private organizations and civil society groups have their attention on various sectors of the economy, which play vital roles in the operational activities of the electioneering process.
In saying all of this, we have to appreciate all these things.
This time, attention is fixed on the aviation sector as the Aviation Safety Roundtable initiative are lending their voice to the operational activities of the sector, looking beyond the 2023 general elections. For some academics at the forum, galvanizing cooperation in the sector is imperative.
Let the government hands off and let the regulators and the investors or the entrepreneurs in the aviation industry wake up so that the forces of the market economy can do the work and the regulators can practice what they believe in. With that, we'll have a better 2023 after the election.
There is a general view in the country to think that aviation is for the elite, is for the few who can fly. But in reality, because of the size of the country, because too many things are still centralized, you still have to go to Abuja, because businesses now happen across the world, because aviation itself can drive business and growth, I argue that we should declare it just as essential as power or water.
Other participants speak of their views of the needed synergy across various sectors to ensure smooth procedures all through the elections.
Some people, especially those in a particular school of thought, they argue that Nigeria is a mere cargo economy, in which it is just a question of importer-exporter. So to that extent, where is the aviation industry? And I think this should be the starting point.
The convener of the Aviation Roundtable explains the numerous challenges of the sector and also prefers some solutions to incoming administrations.
Some of the recommendations was 42%, and that the ones that were ignored, 52%. It doesn't matter. So we tried to appraise this government in the last 8 years, and we realized that the two indices we can use for them is their own set objectives minus the industry objective. What do you want to do as a government? And number one, they said, give us a national carrier. We as the industry, we told them how to do it, but they did their own way. And that was why Professor Killer said it was hatched on paper, somewhere on something, and then die on the Twitter, and then.
Political participants at the event speak on the various solutions their presidential candidates plan to present to Nigerians as solutions to major pressing issues across the economy and the aviation sector.
Even in our recent history, the failure to understand how important aviation is and how to exploit it in our planning tells us many stories. But let's look at a positive example. Without the airline business, there would be no Dubai and there would be no Singapore. This is why the strategy of rapid development of those countries were built around an airline. Part of the problem why we are having these remittance problems for airlines and all of that is that aviation is not generating the foreign exchange it should be generating. This industry can drive a humongous tourism possibility that will bring billions of dollars into Nigeria, but you are not doing it.
With ideas of solutions presented at the meeting, Nigerians are watching to see the extent of collaborations between the aviation sector and other sectors of the economy in the 2023 general elections and beyond.
When we return, we'll check on carriers in Asia to see how they're faring amid the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is one major requirement for air carriers in the event of any emergency. Cabin crew are seen imposed as injured persons while their colleagues undergo drills in the event of an emergency by providing them with specialized training such as smoke and fire response, door and evacuation training, slide evacuation, and water survival skills at its headquarters in Bangkok, Thailand. For Thai AirAsia, the drills are imperative, as borders in the region are beginning to open to incoming and outgoing traffic. Some airline staff restate reasons for the drill.
Given our predictions, once China reopens its border, we have to get our staff ready first, the pilots and cabin crews. We will be getting them trained and prepared to be ready for the incoming tourists throughout the year.
He further shares plans of Thai AirAsia in the future coming off the back of COVID-19 restrictions and global financial trends.
We plan to resume 8 direct routes to China, such as Chongqing, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Wuhan, Kunming, and several other routes. Currently, we will be focusing on these 8 routes first. Chinese tourists account for 30% of the entire number of our passengers, although currently the number of Chinese tourists doesn't add too much. After the reopening of the borders, we can see that the number has moved up from 10% to 20% to now 30%. We expected that the revenue they contribute will gradually climb up to 100% by the end of this year.
Other staff of the airline speak on their expectation and the effect of the pandemic within the region.
When COVID-19 started, it affected us in every way, including cabin crew. So with the resumption of the flight, we are delighted to be welcoming them again, especially Chinese passengers who would be coming back to Thailand through AirAsia.
She speaks more on pre-flight procedures.
Before flying, we have to discuss with the team first. If the passengers were sick, what should we do? If there were unexpected incidents, what should we do in following the steps that we train annually? Additionally, there is custom immigration quarantine, which is a requirement from each airport that cabin crew must follow, whether it is a document or the announcement, which have to be in 3 languages, Thai, English and Chinese. In the flight, we should have at least 1 cabin crew who can speak Mandarin to communicate with passengers.
Globally, the overall number of international flights flying from China is still just 12% of pre-pandemic levels due to slow capacity increases. Major shopping destinations like Thailand are also keen to take advantage of the return of a first wave of Chinese tourists as the country reopens borders after 3 long years of COVID-19 curbs. Chinese customers' expenditure while on travel had grown to $255 billion in 2019 before the pandemic and accounted for 33% of spending in the global luxury personal goods market, according to estimates from Bain. The return of Chinese tourists remains at a very early stage, with experts saying fresh COVID testing requirements for Chinese tourists in some locations may be acting as a barrier, while some countries also require visas that take time to process.
China's public transport system handles 700 million trips since the beginning of Spring Festival travel rush. The country's railway system is expected to handle 10.25 million passenger trips for this year's Spring Festival travel rush, operating 10,138 trains. In civil aviation, 7.32 million passenger trips are expected to be made from New Year's Eve on January 21st to date. The number is up 93.6% from the same period last year. Due to the increase in transit passenger flow, Central China's Wuhan Railway Bureau added additional 138 passenger trains. Key stations across the country also opened more channels for travelers to get in and out of the railway stations.
We have put in place a 1-hour early warning mechanism to cope with large passenger flows and dynamically increase the inbound channels during peak hours such as noon and evening.
In terms of road travel, the number of vehicles returning from short trips increased, with the number of vehicles on expressways reaching 50.7 million on Wednesday, a year-on-year increase of 33.2%. Traffic authorities have strengthened 24-hour emergency response to ensure the roads are clear for travelling. China's Spring Festival travel rush, the largest annual human mobility worldwide. During the period, many go back to their hometowns from the cities where they work, and others choose to make family trips to celebrate the Chinese New Year. It is the most important festival of the year end.
In South Africa, Semakaleng Mathabula expertly fires up the burner, aims a giant blue-orange flame towards the multicolored balloon, and watches as it fills with hot air and begins to lift off the ground. The 27-year-old is South Africa's first black hot air balloon pilot and one of the few female pilots in the field. What used to feel unattainable is now part of her weekly routine.
Growing up, I had never seen a hot air balloon. There's no balloons flying over Harangua. My interests were cooking, accounting. At some point I wanted to do media, but ballooning was not something that was in reach for me. When I was introduced to the sport, it was this new and exciting field. And when I found my feet, I realized it goes beyond marketing. You found me on the field trying to retrieve and crew with everyone else. You found me in the kitchen trying to make sure the guests are eating and they're all happy. And then when the opportunity presented itself by the scholarship with the Department of Sport and Recreation and the Balloon and Airship Federation of South Africa, BAFSA, all the pilots put my name forward and I applied, and here I was being a pilot.
Soon, buildings grew small and she was floating over rivers and farmland, as well as the sunrise, maneuvering the balloon and taking in the view against a yellow sky. Mathabula found her way into ballooning by accident after struggling to find employment. She consulted a recruitment agency which helped her find a job as a marketing assistant at a hot air balloon tour company. She was smithing and later got a scholarship to do her pilot training from the Department of Sport and Recreation and the Balloon and Airship Federation of South Africa. She earned a license last year. A coach says this is the infusion of new blood into the arena.
We really need new blood, younger blood in the sports thing, because a bunch of us, as we're growing old, and we need to get new people in, and this is why it's so nice to have people like Sema and some of the other kids that's trained now and busy training, because it's new. It's not just new opportunities, it's new viewpoints and new aspirations and stuff like that. And we need to be able, I think years back ballooning was a very exclusive club, whereas now it's becoming more open and open.
Mathabula also says she's keen to be an ambassador for the sport and hopes to bring in more youth and diversity. She will compete for the first time in the South African Hot Air Balloon Championship in June.
When we think of aviation, we think helicopters, we think your traditional planes, but ballooning is part of aviation. You are a pilot, it is an aircraft, and it is a field to explore. So I think that kept me going. I've always been motivated by letting people have a point of reference to something new, and it's an adventure. It teaches a lot of responsibility, and I developed a self-confidence in the sport that I would love to instill.
And that's it on the show today. Thank you for watching. Join us again next week for more on aviation stories. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Bye for now.